Okay, so I kind of want to sit down and do an entire playlist over the character of Mysterio for a lot of different reasons. But when it comes to Mysterio, he's one of those characters in Marvel Comics where I feel like people know of him, but don't know everything about the character. And last year, we did an entire playlist over the Hobgoblin. And with that playlist, you guys were able to get a full understanding of what Marvel did with that character in the 80s and the 90s. And so that is what I want to do with the character of Mysterio. Now, as you know, over the years, there were 4 different people who have became Mysterio. Now, I could sit down and do an entire video over Quentin Beck, but I want to kind of start talking about the other people that took up the mantle of Mysterio over the years in Marvel Comics. And the first one I want to talk about is the one that came right after Quentin Beck, and that would be Danny Berkhart. Now, when it comes to Danny Berkhart, he was actually close friends with Quentin Beck, but he came in out of nowhere in Amazing Spider-Man number 141 and 142. And this was a very interesting storyline because we were left to believe that Quentin Beck was dead and there was no longer going to be another Mysterio. But then out of nowhere, we got this guy right here saying, no, I'm going to be the new Mysterio in Marvel Comics. And I feel like a lot of fans forget about him because technically he was Mysterio, but then he moved on and became a different character known as Jack-o'-lantern. But I want to focus today's video on his first appearance in Marvel Comics. And so getting into Amazing Spider-Man number 141, we actually do pick up with Spider-Man right now driving the Spider-Mobile. Now, when it comes to the Spider-Mobile, it's been around for a very long time in Marvel Comics. Now, by this point, it was still somewhat new, but it wasn't used as often later on after this point in Spider-Man's career. Now, the reason why he's going around driving the Spider-Mobile, because he is looking for the Jackal. Now, when it comes to the Jackal, he was a major villain of Spider-Man around this point in time. And the problem was, though, Peter Parker lost the Jackal and he felt like it would be better for him to drive around to look for the Jackal rather than swing around to look for the Jackal. Either way, while he was out there driving, well, of course, some cops saw him and they said he was speeding and they're trying to pull him over. Now, Spider-Man cannot get a ticket as Spider-Man nor Peter Parker, because if they do pull him over, they're going to find out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And so he has no choice but to try to get away. It leads into a police chase. Now, while trying to get away, he does see an alleyway that he believes that could technically help him get away from the police. The problem is, though, when he tries to get over to that alleyway, it just disappears, just like that. And he falls into the river with his vehicle. And of course, they sink to the bottom of the river. Now, Peter Parker is able to swim back to the surface and get away from the cops still, but then realized, wait a second, I saw an alleyway and it just disappeared. And then I fell into the river and now my vehicle is at the bottom of the river. Did I imagine that alleyway, or was it there and someone is trying to play mind games on me? Now, the next morning, we do see Peter Parker go to university. Now, when it comes to Peter Parker, he falls asleep in one particular class, well, all his classes, but for this section, just one particular class, and that would be Miles Warren class, aka the Jackal. Now, Peter Parker has no idea that Miles Warren is the Jackal. And matter of fact, when it comes to Peter Parker, he looks up to Miles Warren a lot. But he has no idea that Miles is actually, well, the Jackal. Either way, when it comes to Peter Parker in this class, he is constantly falling asleep because he's so tired from being Spider-Man and looking for the Jackal that he did not get a good night rest. Now, you do have Miles kind of lecture Peter Parker after the actual class to say, hey man, listen, this is your second time taking my class. I'm going to need you to get your act together. Like, go home, get some rest, do your assignments, and show me that you are the smart person I believe that you are. Because I heard that you are a very talented student. So I need to see that. And so it kind of shows that Miles and Peter do have a close relationship with one another, but at the same time, they have no idea that he's Spider-Man and he's the Jackal. Now, we also get reminded that Gwen Stacy is no longer around in Marvel Comics. She had died, and so we now see Peter Parker trying to move away from her and trying to find new love. Now, when it comes to Peter Parker, his love could be for anybody. It could be Black Cat or Mary Jane. Now, Black Cat has not made her appearance yet in Marvel Comics, but don't worry, when she does, it does lead into the cycle of Peter Parker just jumping around from different women. Now, when it comes to Mary Jane, around this point, it really did seem like she was going to be the next choice, that her and Peter Parker will become a couple and possibly be together forever. Now, at the same time, while being with Mary Jane, he's still thinking of Gwen Stacy, because even though it's been like 30 issues since her death, she still plays on his mind. Like, he still remembers her very well, and it shows that he has so much love for her that it kind of hurts him to believe that he might move on to somebody else. Now, we do jump over to this fancy, expensive club, and the reason why, because of J. Jonah Jameson and Robbie Robertson. Now, when it comes to JJ and Robbie, they got some money, and so they're able to go to different kind of fancy clubs. Now, while being at that fancy club, JJ does get a call from somebody, and apparently JJ is planning to do something really big to somebody in particular. Now, you can already tell that this is probably one of many JJ plans where he's trying to go after Spider-Man, but at the same time, he hires somebody to do the job. And we've seen this before when it comes to JJ. Matter of fact, it led to the birth of the Scorpion. Either way, he is very excited here that the person that he had hired is getting ready for their job. And sooner or later, they should be able to accomplish their job for JJ. And so then we jump over to Spider-Man. Now, it's just Peter Parker just minding his business, trying to have a relaxing night. Except that is the moment where he is confronted by many different bad guys that he has fought over the years in Marvel Comics. So like Electro, Lizard, Green Goblin, Doc Ock. Either way, you do have Peter Parker try his best to fight against them, because he cannot believe the idea that all the different bad guys that he has fought over the years had just randomly appear right in front of him all at once. Now, while he is trying to fight against them, unfortunately, they just keep disappearing. And so for Spider-Man, it's more of what in the world is going on here? Now, this is where he is confronted by Mysterio. Now, when it comes to Peter Parker, the last time he fought Mysterio was back in Amazing Spider-Man number 67. And so the last time they fought, Mysterio was in jail, and he has not seen Mysterio ever since then. And so he's kind of like, what in the world is going on here? Mysterio is back? There's no way that this man could be back again. And so you have Peter Parker try to fight against Mysterio. But again, when it comes to Mysterio, he is the master of illusions. And so he was able to trick Peter Parker and make it believe that he just disappeared on him, in the middle of their fight. Now, you then have once again Peter Parker get confronted by all the different bad guys once again. And so this is Peter Parker trying to fight against them. The problem is though, every single punch he throws goes to a wall, a brick wall, and he just keeps constantly punching the wall over and over again. Now, the reason why he keeps doing that, because he believes that the different bad guys he fought over the years are in front of him, but in reality, they are not. And so once he realized no one is there was all some kind of trick, most likely done by Mysterio, his hands are mostly not broken, but they are badly injured, and there's blood all over them. And he's kind of like, what in the world is going on? Now, when Peter Parker does arrive to the Daily Bugle, well, you have Betty Brant and Ned Leeds realize that Peter Parker's hands are technically bandaged up a whole lot, and they're wondering what in the world is going on. Now, you have Peter Parker actually tell them that he was attacked by Mysterio. Now, when it comes to Ned Leeds, he's all like, that's not possible. And the reason why? Because Mysterio is dead. That apparently after Peter Parker had put Mysterio in jail, well, apparently he died in jail. And so now we're left to believe that Peter Parker has gone insane. That the folks he fought earlier, the different bad guys he fought over the years that appeared out of nowhere in front of him, they were not real, which means that Peter Parker must be going insane. The same thing for Mysterio appearing in front of him, which means again that Peter Parker is going insane, because now it's Ned Lee saying, dude, you're crazy. Mysterio, Quentin Beck, yeah, he died in prison. So I don't know how in the world that you were attacked by somebody who was wearing a Mysterio mask, but yeah, there's no way it was Quentin Beck. And so then we jump into Amazing Spider-Man number 142. Now, when we do, this is really more of Peter Parker going back over to where his Spider-Mobile was left behind. Now remember, when it comes to Peter Parker, it fell to the bottom of the river only because he believed that there was some alleyway there to originally help him get away from the cops. But unfortunately, it was not real. It was an illusion. And so when it comes to Peter Parker, he's trying to find different ways to get the actual vehicle out of the water, except he's having a hard time actually doing it. Now, once he does get back to the surface, it's him still wondering what he saw in the last chapter. Was there really an alleyway there? But at the same time, he's wondering, was that another trick being done by Mysterio? Now, once he's able to get back to the surface and get back on land, well, then he is confronted by Mysterio once again. And so it does lead into another battle between Peter Parker and Mysterio. Now, when it comes to this battle, it's really more of Peter Parker trying to figure out if Mysterio is actually here. Because let's not forget, Ned Leeds told Peter Parker, hey man, after Spider-Man had locked up Mysterio, he died in prison. And so it's Peter wondering, okay, is this someone else who took up the mantle of Mysterio, or is this Quentin Beck, or could this be the ghost of Mysterio? And so you have Peter try his best to fight against Mysterio, but unfortunately, he's having a hard time winning this battle because, again, Mysterio is the master of illusions. And right now, it's him trying to make Spider-Man believe that he is some kind of ghost that came back from death to only get revenge against Spider-Man. But at the end of their battle, you do have Mysterio leave, but now you have Spider-Man wondering what in the world is going on. Now, you do have Peter Parker go back to his apartment. Now, when he does go back to his apartment, he does call up Aunt May to tell us that this is Peter Parker after kind of moving out of Harry Osborn's place and getting his own place, but not wanting to move back home with Aunt May. Now, this also shows that no matter what, Peter Parker is always going to be there for Aunt May. Now, while you have Peter Parker on the phone with Aunt May, Mary Jane also appears to continue the idea that possibly Peter Parker and Mary Jane could, get together. Now, while you have Peter talking to Aunt May, that is when he sees, or what he believes he sees, is the Kingpin coming behind Mary Jane. And so he freaks out and throws the phone against the wall, just barely missing Mary Jane. But it's Peter saying that he thought he saw something, but in reality he did. It's just that it was an illusion once again. Now, Mary Jane's kind of like concerned for Peter and wondering what in the world is going on. Now, that is also the moment you do have his landlord and also his neighbor appear to see what in the world is going on in his apartment. Now, when it comes to the landlord, she's not really that important, but we also kind of find the neighbor's name is Glory Grant. Now, we're left to believe that Glory Grant is going to be important for later stories down the road. And the reason why, because you have Glory mention that she wants to make sure her new neighbor Peter is okay. But the way she talks, it seems like her and Peter have been close for each other for a good while now. And so Mary Jane asks Peter, how long have you known her? Peter tells her, honestly, I'm not sure how long I knew her. And that right there is kind of concerning. But then we jump over to J. Jonah Jameson. Now, when we do, this is JJ getting another phone call to prove that technically he has something going on that involves getting rid of Spider-Man. Because apparently the other person on the other end of the line tells JJ that when it comes to Spider-Man, he believes that he is seeing a ghost, which is Mysterio, and getting closer and closer to the idea of getting rid of Spider-Man once and for all. And you already know, when it comes to JJ, he has always hated Spider-Man, and so to hear the idea that sooner or later he might be able to get rid of Spider-Man once and for all is a great thing for him. He is so excited. Now we do see that Peter Parker and Mary Jane do arrive at the Daily Bugle. Now when they do, this is the point where technically in Spider-Man's timeline, we kind of find out that Betty Brant and also Ned Leeds are engaged to one another. Now originally Betty was dating Peter Parker in the early days of Marvel Comics, but she moved on and met Ned, and even though Peter hated Ned because he was dating his ex, well, Ned began to kind of show Peter Parker that they could be friends. And so when it comes to Peter and Mary Jane, they're both excited to hear that Ned and also Betty are going to get married. They finally pick a date for their wedding and everything is going great. Now, while you have everybody at the Daily Bugle kind of celebrating, you then have Peter Parker realize, or once again think he sees somebody else. Except this time, he thinks he sees Gwen Stacy. Now, when it comes to Gwen, Peter knows that she is dead, but he's now wondering if there is a possibility that she is alive again. And if she is, well, that's the woman Peter Parker wants the most, which is Gwen Stacy, not Mary Jane. I mean, yes, he likes Mary Jane, but Gwen more. And so when he does chase after, well, who he believes is Gwen Stacy, well, when he hits the corner and try to see if she's still there, she's no longer there, which tells Peter that once again, he was seeing things. And so because of that, you have Peter Parker begin to believe that he is actually going insane, to the point where he does leave Mary Jane behind and change into his Spider-Man outfit. Now, between the pages, we do kind of find out that Peter Parker was able to realize that Mysterio is not dead, that he is not going insane. And the reason why, because when it comes to Peter Parker, he realized that there was some kind of gizmo on his chest this entire time that was technically projecting the different images of the different people who have caused Peter Parker problems in his life. So earlier, when it came to the different bad guys that he was fighting, well, that came from the gizmo that was on his chest, that was placed by Mysterio, that was projecting images of the different bad guys that Peter Parker fought over the years. And so once he's able to realize that, okay, if Quentin Beck is dead, that means somebody else must have taken up the mantle. But the question is right now, who? And so luckily for Peter Parker, he was able to track the transmission of this gizmo back to the base of our new Mysterio. Now, once Peter Parker is able to actually find the base that belongs to Mysterio, it does lead into a battle between the two of them. Now, this is where Peter Parker does find out that when it comes to Mysterio, that this is not Quentin Beck, that this is a new person taking up the mantle of Mysterio, and that would be Danny Berkhart. Now, when it comes to Danny Berkhart, well, the only reason why he became Mysterio, because apparently after Quentin Beck had died in prison, apparently he left a lot of gear behind to give Danny the chance to become Mysterio, because the two of them were very close. Now, this was the moment where you have Marvel say that when it came to Quentin Beck, he died after Amazing Spider-Man number 67. And so with his death, it left room for somebody else to take up the mantle. Now, we could technically say that this was Marvel just believing that when it came to the character of Mysterio, even though fans loved the character, maybe it was time for a change, somebody else to take up the mantle, which was Danny Berkhart. Either way, you had Danny once again tell Peter Parker, or Spider-Man, that yeah, Quentin died in prison. He left behind all his tech so that I could become the next Mysterio, but I told myself I would get revenge for him against you. Either way, you have Peter being able to stop Mysterio and the day is saved. Now, the book does end with basically Danny Berkhart calling up J. Jonah Jameson. And the reason why, because remember, when it came to JJ, he hired Danny to to actually get rid of Spider-Man, except, well, it now backfired. And so with Danny right now being locked up in prison, it's him saying, you better get a good lawyer, because if I'm going down, you're going down with me. And so you have JJ tell Robertson that he'll be gone for a tad bit to kind of get a good lawyer and to handle some situations, because right now he does not want to go to prison alongside with Danny for trying to attack Spider-Man, but to also causing a lot of damage in the city. And so this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.